Hey YouTubers, gonna do a quick video chronicling my Stanley Kubrick collection. Just talk about him briefly. Stanley Kubrick is my favorite director of all time. I've always loved the guy. He makes some of the most amazing films ever, and I'll go into detail about it. First one up is Paths of Glory, great war film with Kirk Douglas. This one, I was so proud of myself because I got this so cheap, and then like shortly afterwards I find out that the Criterion Collection releases it. I'm like, God damn it. That's a history of my bad timing though, because I got this off someone had this in a box set. Tales from the Crypt did another version of this, which I thought was always cool. It even had Kirk Douglas reprise his role pretty much. It's basically a couple of soldiers during World War I are charged with I forgot the exact term for it, but basically being a coward in the war, and their lives are put on trial. It's a great film. Next up, I don't really consider this a Kubrick film. It was directed by Kubrick, but it's really more of Kirk Douglas's film, and that's Spartacus. I was always holding out for the Criterion release, but Walmart a while back was having a sale on these award winners, the gold ones, and they had so many of them. And they were so cheap that I literally stocked up. I spent so much money, but I got so many of these things. It's a good film. It's not a great one. I don't consider it a great film. It's definitely an epic worth checking out. I really enjoy it, but I don't really think it's Kubrick's best film or anything like that. Next up, it's probably my favorite Kubrick film of all time. It's Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. I just think it's so genius to take something that's so horrific, the idea of all life being destroyed through nuclear holocaust, and make a comedy out of it, and the performances are amazing. This has some of the best over-the-top performances ever. I think pretty much the only performance that's not over the top is Peter Sellers as the president. It's filled with so many great lines, like, "You can't fire near, this is the war room." It's just filled with great moments. It's one of the funniest films I've ever seen. I know a lot of the younger generation doesn't agree with me, but it's not the kind of humor that's written in black and white. You have to think for a second before you get the humor. Like, for example, the scene where Peter Sellers has to get quarters from the Coca-Cola machine to call the president to give the recall code. Just the idea that the fate of the world rests on a Coca-Cola machine. Stuff like that. I love this film. It's probably my second favorite film of all time. Full Metal Jacket. This film is kind of odd in that it has gotten better with age and it's gotten worse with age. Recently, and what I mean by that is, when I first saw this, I loved this film, but then it kind of, faded away from grace a little bit. But it's been on the rise because I saw it recently, and I really love this film. I used to think that the second half was where the film bottomed out, but I really enjoyed the whole film. Hey, see, I got a whole bunch of these older ones, the snap cases. Yeah, R. Lee Ermey is amazing in this film. He was the only actor that was ever given complete free range with their performance in any Kubrick film, because Kubrick was kind of a control freak, was a perfectionist, and didn't give the actors complete reign over their performance. Like Kubrick kind of dictated everything. Great film. Here's another great one. 2001: A Space Odyssey. Probably my second favorite sci-fi film of all time, behind Metropolis. Metropolis is my favorite science fiction film of all time. But I remember I saw this on vacation when I was, I'd say, about in middle school, and I loved this film, and it definitely holds up so well. I love the use of classic music. That's probably why I love Kubrick's film so much. But this is one that a lot of people find slow and boring. I find it to be in a kind of realistic settings where you feel the space atmosphere, where it's quiet and tedious and kind of stuff, that you have to be patient to enjoy this film. It is such a masterpiece if you're willing to sit through it, because this is definitely not a fast film. It's definitely one of the slower films, but it's so great. I never had a problem with not understanding this film. I've come up with my own conclusion about the ending, but since Ryan is doing a review of this in the near future, I'll not spoil anything. Great film though. Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. This is the only Blu-ray of Kubrick that I have. Wait a second. I just remembered I forgot a Kubrick film. I should probably edit this. Sorry about that. I just remembered I forgot to include a Kubrick film in this. I had one more. I'll do that one next. Yeah, this is one that when I first saw it, I really liked it, and I really had to go see it again, because it was kind of the film where I feel like the more times I see it, the more I'll understand it and grow to like it even more. Really good film. It's definitely one of those Kubrick films where the Kubrick fans will love it, and then people who don't like Kubrick definitely will hate this film. Absolutely love the visual style of this film, the use of color and lights. It's amazing. Before I get to Killing, I'll do Barry Lyndon. One of my favorite Kubrick films, definitely high up on the list. This one was nominated for Best Picture. I think a few of them were, but this one is one that gets a wrongful title as being a slow and boring film. It's a period piece that's 3 hours long, but it is so good. It's filled with so many great moments about it. I don't really have much to say about this one. This is such a great film. Go check it out if you haven't seen it already. I'm always interested in hearing what people's opinions about this film are, because I know I'm not a fan of the period pieces, and I actually was always on the fence about seeing this film, because I know it's Stanley Kubrick, but I'm so not into period pieces, but I love this film. The Killing, I haven't watched this recently, so I really don't have any idea of how well it's hold up. I probably should have watched this recently before I did this, but yeah, this is a pretty good film. I don't think it's great. The only Kubrick films I don't have in my collection are Killer's Kiss, The Seafarers, I mean, and obviously Fear and Desire, because that one you can only get through bootlegs. It's very hard to come by because Kubrick kind of disowned that film. But this is a crime film, a heist film of a racetrack robbery. It's going to be in the Criterion Collection, so of course I own this one. I have a habit of buying films right before they come onto the Criterion Collection. And this one with Sterling Hayden, it's told in a non-linear style of filmmaking, not Pulp Fiction kind of non-linear where it's just insanity how non-linear it is, but it's enough to really be noticeable of how non-linear it is. I always felt as if the really early Kubrick films, their biggest downfall was Kubrick tries to be too much of a director. I felt as if Paths of Glory is when he finally came to his own, and his films really improved a great deal after that, because Paths of Glory is really the first film where he stopped using voiceovers and narrations. Because I felt that this and Killer's Kiss used voiceovers and narrations a little too much. Pretty good film if you want to check it out. I recommend getting the Criterion when it comes out. The Shining, one of the best horror films ever made in my opinion. This one definitely gets under my skin. This is one that critics hated it. It was it got mixed reviews when it first came out. It was actually nominated for 2 Razzies. Worst Actress and Worst Director. And that's really bizarre when you look back that Stanley Kubrick was nominated for Worst Director, because this is one of his most impressive films as a director in my opinion. The Steadicam in this film is amazing. One of my favorite sequences is actually one you might be like, what? Why that? But it's when the kid in the film, Danny, is on his little the tricycle or whatever. He's going through the halls, and you hear the pitter-patter of him going from carpet to wood flooring. It's such an eerie scene. It's filled with eerie moments. It's such a great film. This is one that's great atmosphere. I think the film really is that scary. I don't really get scared by horror films, but this one definitely is such an eerie mood piece. And the scene between Jack Nicholson and what's his guy's name? Philip Stone as Delbert Grady is amazing. I think one of the greatest conversations in film history. And by the way, there was only 2 actors to appear in 3 Kubrick films. Philip Stone with The Shining, Barry Lyndon, and the next film I'm about to show you, and Philip Turkle, who was in this one, Paths of Glory, and The Killing. And last but not least, I don't have Lolita, or I think I didn't mention that one. A Clockwork Orange. Love this film. This is the only one of Kubrick's films where I've actually read the book. And if you find the way Alex talks hard to understand in the movie, don't even attempt to read the book. The book is told entirely through past tense, where he's narrating the events leading up to the point where he is now. And he speaks entirely in Cockney language. This is a great film. The use of music, the visual style is amazing. Everything about this film is amazing. And Malcolm McDowell was cast through this in this film after Stanley Kubrick saw If. And Malcolm McDowell is just awesome as Alex in this, and he's the kind of anti-hero that you love to hate. He does the most despicable things ever in film, and yet he's absolutely in heaven with what he's doing, and he's so interesting to watch. It's very accurate to the book. It definitely differs from the book a bit, like all Kubrick films, but definitely one of my favorite Kubrick films. Everything from it, the way he directed it, everything is just so amazing. Well, that was my Kubrick films. Thanks for checking this out. See ya.